The Los Angeles dojo buzzed with excitement that afternoon. Cameras flashed, students whispered, and every eye was fixed on the towering figure of Steven Seagal, the legendary martial artist and movie star, demonstrating powerful wrist locks on his assistant. His movements were sharp, deliberate, and filled with confidence, the kind that made everyone believe he could take on anyone in the room. Among the small crowd standing quietly in the corner was Manny Pacquiao, simple track pants, plain t-shirt, no entourage, no noise. Most of the students didn't even recognize him at first. To them, he was just a short, soft-spoken man watching respectfully with his hands folded. When the instructor mentioned Manny's name, murmurs spread. "Wait, that Manny? The boxer?" someone whispered. Seagal turned, scanning him up and down, a faint smirk tugging at the corner of his mouth. "Well," Seagal said loudly, "you're smaller than I imagined. Are you sure you're in the right place? We're not teaching cardio boxing here." A few people chuckled nervously. Manny only smiled, bowing slightly. "Yes, sir. Just here to learn," he said softly. Seagal laughed. "Learn? I thought champions did the teaching." His tone carried a playful arrogance and the kind that dared you to react. But Manny didn't bite. He simply nodded, his expression calm, respectful. Those who knew him recognized that look, the quiet patience before a storm. Seagal stepped closer, towering over him. "Tell you what," he said, gesturing toward the mat. "Why don't we have a little friendly demo, just to show the boys what world champions are made of?" The room went silent. Cameras were raised. Manny hesitated, not out of fear, but humility. "Only with respect, sir," he said. Seagal smirked again, confident, almost amused. "Of course. Respect," he repeated, though his tone made the word sound like a joke. The two men took their places on the mat, one standing tall and proud, the other relaxed and quiet. The air in the dojo thickened with tension. Even the sound of Seagal's breathing seemed louder. Then came that fateful pause before the first move. The calm before a legend was humbled. But what happened just 3 seconds later left the entire gym speechless. The mat beneath their feet felt almost electric. You could hear the shuffle of feet as the students slowly circled closer, phones already raised, ready to capture what looked like a once-in-a-lifetime moment. Steven Seagal adjusted his sleeves, the confidence in his stance almost theatrical. He looked like a man performing for the cameras rather than preparing for a test of skill. Across from him stood Manny Pacquiao, the very definition of composure. He didn't stretch, didn't bounce on his toes, didn't even remove his faint smile. His hands rested loosely at his sides, his breathing steady. To anyone watching who didn't know who he was, Manny looked like an underdog walking into a trap. Seagal's voice echoed through the dojo. "Now let me show you the difference between movie fighting and real fighting," he said with a smirk. A ripple of laughter moved through the room. Manny said nothing. His eyes didn't waver. A young student in the back whispered, "That's Manny Pacquiao, right? The 8th Division champ?" The student next to him nodded, whispering back, "Yeah, but Seagal's huge. He's got like 50 pounds on him." Seagal gestured for Manny to come closer. "Go on, champ," he said. "Hit me with something." Manny took one step forward and bowed slightly. "With all due respect, sir, I don't wish to hurt anyone." The crowd chuckled again, interpreting his words as hesitation. Seagal smirked. "Don't worry," he said. "You won't, that was it." The air thickened. The crowd leaned in. Some whispered, "Is he serious?" Others murmured, "This is going to be embarrassing." Manny took a slow breath. In through the nose, out through the mouth. Years of discipline from dusty gyms in General Santos City flashed through his mind. The mornings he ran before sunrise. The prayers whispered before every fight. The lessons his mother taught him about humility, even in victory. He raised his hands. Not in aggression, in respect. A simple, clean boxing stance. Nothing fancy. Seagal moved first, his long arms sweeping in a wide arc, aiming to grab Manny's wrist in a typical Aikido demonstration. It was slow, deliberate, meant to show dominance rather than actual combat intent. Manny tilted his head slightly, watching every motion, every muscle twitch. His eyes narrowed, just a little. He took one small step backward, calm, composed, calculating. Seagal laughed under his breath. "Don't be shy now, champ," he said, beckoning him forward. Someone near the edge of the mat muttered, "Man, this is going to go viral." The tension felt alive. Every student's heartbeat seemed to sync with the low hum of the fluorescent lights. A few of them could already sense it. That strange shift in energy when confidence begins to feel like arrogance and silence starts to feel like danger. Seagal moved again, faster this time. His hand darted forward toward Manny's shoulder, intending to grab and pull him into a hold. Manny didn't move at first. Then, in a flash, he did a quick sidestep. A pivot. A light tap on Seagal's arm to redirect it. In that brief instant, Manny wasn't reacting, he was predicting. Years of reading opponents in the ring, years of fighting men stronger, taller, heavier. His eyes stayed locked on Seagal's chest, the source of motion, the rhythm of every attack. The crowd gasped softly at how easily Manny slipped past the initial grab. It wasn't even an exchange yet, just a test. But everyone could see it. This wasn't luck, it was mastery. Seagal frowned, embarrassed by how effortless it looked. "All right," he said louder, "let's stop pretending." He straightened up, adjusted his belt, and barked, "Full speed this time." Manny only nodded once. "As you wish, sir." The moment stretched, long, tense, fragile. Seagal took a half step forward, ready to lunge. The crowd leaned in closer, phones trembling slightly in their hands. Manny's shoulders relaxed even more. There was no fear. Only patience. He whispered something barely audible. "With respect." Seagal lunged, and the instant his motion began, that tiny tell, the tightening of shoulders, the forward shift of weight, Manny's body came alive like lightning. His left foot slid forward. His right hand flicked up, not to strike, but to block the path of Seagal's grab. In that same motion, his left hand tapped Seagal's wrist, redirecting the force harmlessly away. It was clean, precise, effortless. The crowd gasped again. Seagal blinked, surprised. He hadn't expected to miss, and definitely not to lose balance so quickly. His right leg shifted awkwardly to recover, but Manny was already resetting, light on his feet, unbothered. Seagal's face tightened. His pride began to sting. "You're fast," he muttered, loud enough for the room to hear. "But power wins fights." Manny's answer was calm. "Power without control is nothing, sir." That line hit the air like a silent punch. The room went completely still for a second. Somewhere in the back, a student whispered, "He's not even trying." And that was true. Manny wasn't fighting. He was teaching, went without saying much at all. Seagal clenched his jaw and stepped forward again, now visibly irritated. "All right," he said, his tone sharpening. "Let's see how you handle this." He squared his shoulders, ready to go harder, the air around them tightening like a coiled spring. Everyone watching could feel it. Something big was coming. Manny adjusted his footing one last time. Eyes steady, heartbeat calm, he whispered again, almost like a prayer. "Respect first." Have you ever seen someone underestimate the wrong person? Comment yes if you have. You could feel it, the shift in the air. Every breath in the dojo had become slow, shallow, careful. What began as a light-hearted demonstration was now turning into something heavier. Even Seagal's longtime students who'd seen him humble countless challengers looked uneasy. Manny Pacquiao stood still, eyes focused, his body language unreadable. He wasn't tensed, wasn't defensive, he just waited. Steven Seagal's pride, however, had been touched. The little man he thought would make an easy example had just turned his technique into a lesson, and done it without a single trace of disrespect. That calmness only made Seagal more irritated. He rolled his shoulders, pacing slightly, his black GI swaying with each motion. "You're fast, champ," he said loudly, his voice carrying across the room. "But in real fighting you need control, precision, power." Manny nodded politely. "Yes, sir, control is everything." Seagal squinted at him, unsure whether he was being agreed with or subtly corrected. "Let's try something else," he said, gesturing with his hand. "Come at me this time." Manny blinked once, his head tilted slightly. "You want me to attack?" "Go ahead," Seagal said with a smirk. "Show me what all those titles are worth," the crowd murmured. This was no longer a lesson. This was pride. Manny took a step forward, his feet gliding over the mat so quietly that you could hear the buzz of the overhead lights. His eyes stayed on Seagal's chest, calm and sharp. Years of boxing instinct kicked in, reading micro-movements, breathing rhythm, weight balance. Inside Manny's mind, it wasn't about fighting. It was about patience. Every fiber of him was trained to wait for the perfect moment, to never rush to let his opponent reveal himself. Seagal raised his hands, ready to deflect, expecting a heavy punch or a flashy combo. He was prepared for brute strength, not silence. Then it happened. Manny's right foot shifted ever so slightly. His shoulders relaxed, his gaze softened. It looked like nothing, until his left hand darted forward, stopping just inches from Seagal's chest. The movement was too fast for most to follow. Seagal flinched, reacting a second too late. But Manny didn't hit him. He stopped, frozen mid-motion at the control absolute. Then he smiled, lowering his hand. Gasps rippled across the room. It wasn't an attack. It was a reminder of precision, of control, of respect. Seagal forced a laugh. "Quick reflexes," he said, trying to mask his unease. "But let's see how you handle real pressure." He suddenly lunged. It was fast. For a man of his size, impressive. But to Manny, it was like slow motion. Years of dodging jabs from world-class opponents had trained his body to react without thought. Seagal's arm shot forward, aiming for Manny's collar. In less than a blink, Manny pivoted his right foot, twisted slightly at the waist, and Seagal's grip met air. In the same motion, Manny's open palm tapped Seagal's chest. Not a strike. Just a touch, perfectly balanced, perfectly timed. The force of Manny's precision combined with Seagal's forward momentum made the big man stumble half a step backward. You could hear the collective gasp of the onlookers. Someone whispered, "Did that just happen?" Manny didn't move in for follow-up. He simply lowered his hands, took a half step back, and bowed. "Respect," he said softly. For a second, Seagal just stared at him. His pride screamed to take control back, to prove his dominance in front of the crowd. The cameras, the whispers, the looks, they all pressed against his ego. "All right," Seagal said through a tight smile. "Let's stop pretending this is practice." The crowd tensed. This wasn't supposed to get real. Manny remained still. His expression never changed. He looked like a man carved out of calm. Seagal feinted left, then suddenly reached out with both hands to grab Manny's arm and shoulder, the kind of grappling move that had dropped dozens of his students before. But Manny's reaction was instant. His feet shifted like water flowing around a rock. A subtle slip to the right, a pivot, and a tap under Seagal's elbow. Perfectly timed, perfectly angled. It was a soft move, yet Seagal's body twisted awkwardly with the redirection. His balance broke, and he stumbled forward, catching himself just in time. The room erupted in low murmurs and muffled gasps. Seagal froze for a heartbeat, his pride flickering like a flame in the wind. Then, in a flash of anger, he turned around, eyes narrowed. "Again," he demanded. Manny bowed his head slightly. "As you wish." For a moment, everything slowed down. The hum of lights, the sound of breathing, even the ticking clock on the wall. All that existed was the quiet tension between the two men, the mountain of ego and the ocean of humility. Manny's expression softened. His lips moved silently, maybe a prayer, maybe a thought. His mother's voice echoed in his memory. "Never let anger lead your hands, son. Strength without mercy is weakness." He exhaled, shoulders dropping, calm as ever. Steven Seagal adjusted his stance once more, visibly frustrated, preparing to go all in. The crowd braced themselves. Phones were held tighter. This time there would be no more warnings, no more half-speed moves. One man was about to be humbled, and the other was about to show the world what true control looks like. The seconds before impact felt like an eternity. Manny's eyes locked onto Seagal's chest, reading every twitch, every breath. His body was still, but his focus was pure fire. Everyone in the room leaned forward, waiting. Then came the move that no one saw coming. And in just 3 seconds, Steven Seagal's confidence and balance vanished before everyone's eyes. The room had fallen so silent that even the air conditioning sounded loud. Seagal planted his feet in the center of the mat, his broad shoulders rolling as he prepared to end the embarrassment. Manny stood 10 feet away, hands loose at his sides, every muscle relaxed. It was a picture of contrast, brawn versus calm, noise versus stillness. Someone whispered, "Here it comes." Another tightened their grip on a phone already recording. Seagal lunged first. His right hand cut through the air toward Manny's collar, the movement fast for a man his size but still telegraphed by the shift of his hips. Manny's eyes read it instantly. He slipped half a step to the side, let the motion pass him, and answered with a blur of movement that no one could track. 1. A short left tap to Seagal's shoulder, barely contact, redirecting the force of the grab. 2. A pivot of Manny's hips. A twist of his torso and his right palm met Seagal's chest with the accuracy of a laser. It wasn't a strike meant to injure. It was timing, geometry, balance. The impact caught Seagal mid-motion, right when his weight was forward. 3. Seagal's legs crossed awkwardly, his base gone. His eyes widened for a fraction of a second before gravity took him. The sound of his body hitting the mat echoed like a thunderclap, gasps, a few stifled laughs, and then the silence of disbelief. Steven Seagal, the towering martial arts icon, lay flat on his back. Manny had already stepped away, bowing slightly, hands down, breathing steady. He didn't gloat. He didn't celebrate. He simply said, "Respect, sir," in the same soft tone he'd used since the beginning. For a heartbeat, no one moved. Then the whispers began. Did that really just happen? He didn't even hit him hard. It was like he knew exactly when to move. Seagal blinked up at the ceiling, the sting of shock heavier than the fall itself. Pride burned in his chest, but the look in Manny's eyes wasn't mocking. It was patient, kind, almost apologetic. Manny stepped closer and offered his hand. "Are you all right?" Seagal hesitated, then took it. Manny's grip was firm but gentle, helping him to his feet. The room erupted in polite applause, unsure whether to cheer for the move or for the humility that followed it. Seagal brushed off his uniform, forcing a laugh. "You're quick, champ," he said, his voice half hoarse. Manny smiled. "Only because I have good teachers." The humility in that answer hit harder than the fall. Students who'd once idolized Seagal now watched Manny with awe, not because he'd won, but because he hadn't tried to. One of the younger students near the back whispered to his friend, "That's why he's a real champion." Another added quietly, "He doesn't need to prove anything." Seagal adjusted his belt, trying to reclaim the moment. "You caught me off guard," he said. "Must have been luck." Manny shook his head. "No, sir. It was timing and respect." The words hung in the air like scripture. For a long moment, Seagal said nothing. You could see the conflict on his face, ego wrestling with admiration. The cameras captured every twitch of emotion, every ounce of humility he was fighting to regain. Then slowly he nodded. "Well, that's good timing, all right." The crowd finally relaxed. A few clapped louder, some laughed nervously, and the tension broke. Manny bowed again and began to step off the mat, but Seagal called after him. "Pacquiao." Manny turned. Seagal gave a small, reluctant smile. "You're stronger than you look." Manny's answer was soft, but carried through the entire room. "Strength is not in the body, sir. It's in the heart." That single line silenced everyone again, not because it sounded rehearsed, but because it was true. Outside the mat area, one of the assistants whispered, "That clip's going online tonight." Another nodded, eyes wide. "It'll break the internet." Seagal extended his hand again, this time not as a challenge, but as acknowledgement. Manny shook it firmly, both men holding eye contact a second longer than expected. For the first time all afternoon, Seagal's face softened into something genuine. "You've got spirit, champ. I respect that." Manny gave a modest bow. "Thank you, sir." As he left the mat, the students parted to make way for him, some clapping quietly, others giving respectful nods. No one saw arrogance in him, only calm, discipline, and grace. Behind him, Seagal watched with an expression that was half pride, half reflection. Maybe he had learned something about humility that day. Maybe he was still processing how quickly pride can meet the floor. The whispers continued long after Manny walked out. 3 seconds, that's all it took. 3 seconds to shift the mood of an entire room. 3 seconds to turn mockery into respect. 3 seconds to remind everyone watching that greatness doesn't need to shout. It simply moves when the time is right. As the applause faded, a deeper silence remained. Because what Manny said next would teach every person in that dojo what true respect really means. The sound of clapping faded until only the soft squeak of feet on the mat remained. Steven Seagal stood still, one hand pressed against his chest where Manny's palm had landed. He wasn't hurt. It was his pride that had taken the hit. The entire room waited to see how he would respond. Manny Pacquiao stayed quiet, his head bowed slightly. He wasn't gloating, wasn't smiling. He was giving Seagal space to find his balance again, both physically and emotionally. For nearly half a minute, no one spoke. Then Seagal exhaled through his nose and said almost to himself, 3 seconds. He gave a low chuckle that sounded half amazed, half humbled. Manny lifted his head. Timing, sir, he said gently. In the ring or anywhere, timing decides everything. Seagal studied him. The arrogance that had filled his eyes earlier was gone. In its place was curiosity, maybe even respect. You didn't hit me, he said. You could have. Manny shook his head. Why would I? We were learning, not fighting. Those simple words spread through the room like a lesson no one expected. Every student, every instructor, every bystander understood what he meant. That strength without control is just chaos, and control without humility is nothing at all. Seagal crossed his arms, still breathing a little heavier than before. You know, he said after a pause, people come here all the time wanting to prove themselves. You didn't. Manny smiled faintly. I learned a long time ago, sir, that ego can't win, only respect does. That line hit harder than any punch. A few students nodded subconsciously, taking mental notes. One of them whispered, "That's why he's the champ." Seagal looked at Manny again, a new softness in his expression. You remind me of something I forgot a long time ago, he admitted. When I started training, it was about discipline. Then, it became about reputation. Manny answered quietly, It happens to all of us. But every day we can choose again. The older man's shoulders eased. He stepped forward and extended his hand, this time without hesitation. You've earned my respect, champ. Manny took it with both hands and bowed slightly. Thank you, sir. The handshake lingered, a quiet symbol that pride had finally yielded to humility. The room erupted in applause again, not loud or mocking this time, but warm and genuine. The tension that had filled the dojo earlier was gone, replaced by admiration. One of Seagal's students stepped forward and asked shyly, Sir Manny, can I ask, how do you stay that calm, even when people doubt you? Manny turned to him, smiling kindly. Because when I was young, many people did. I learned that anger burns energy, but calm builds power. When you control your heart, your hands follow. Another student chimed in. Is that why you always pray before fights? Manny nodded. Prayer is not asking to win, it's asking for peace in the middle of a fight. The words hung in the air like a sermon. Even Seagal listened closely, his arms folded but his head slightly bowed. After a long pause, Seagal said, Maybe we should all remember that. I've spent years teaching technique, but maybe I've forgotten the spirit behind it. Manny smiled again. The spirit never leaves. It just waits for you to listen. A ripple of murmurs swept through the students. Some even clapped quietly. The energy in the dojo had completely changed. What had started as a public embarrassment had turned into a shared moment of humility. A few minutes later, someone offered Manny a towel and water. He accepted both politely, refusing to sit until Seagal did. When Seagal finally sank onto the bench at the edge of the mat, Manny joined him. For a moment, the two men just sat there, one known for cinematic fights, the other for real ones, breathing the same air of understanding. Seagal broke the silence first. You know, he said with a smirk, you could make a great martial arts teacher. You already have the patience for it. Manny laughed softly. I'm still a student, sir, always. The humility in that single sentence carried more weight than any belt or title. Cameras clicked again, but now the pictures captured two men smiling, equals, not opponents. Someone in the back whispered, That's the clip everyone's gonna share. Seagal looked at Manny and said, You taught my students more in 3 seconds than I could in 3 months. Manny shook his head. No, sir, you taught them by giving me the chance. The older man chuckled. You're too kind. Manny's expression softened. Respect is kindness. Without it, there's no real strength. That final sentence wrapped the afternoon in a quiet dignity that words rarely achieve. The crowd began to disperse slowly, still whispering about what they'd just witnessed, not realizing they had seen more than a sparring match. They had seen pride fall and wisdom rise. As Manny prepared to leave, he turned to Seagal one last time. "Thank you for today," he said. "It's good when two fighters meet and both learn something." Seagal smiled genuinely. "You're welcome here anytime, champ. Next time, maybe you can teach me how to move like that." Manny grinned. "Next time we'll train together, respectfully." The two bowed to each other, the applause swelling once more. Outside the dojo, the California sun was already setting, painting the windows gold. Manny paused at the door, glanced back at the mat, and whispered to himself, "Respect. Always." Then he stepped into the fading light, the sound of clapping following him like a blessing. Do you think respect matters more than reputation? Type respect if you agree. The next morning, the internet was already on fire. Clips from the dojo had been uploaded overnight. Titles blared across social media feeds. Steven Seagal gets humbled by Manny Pacquiao in just 3 seconds. The champ teaches a master a lesson in respect. Pacquiao's calmness leaves Seagal speechless. The video spread like wildfire. It wasn't the fall itself that captivated people. It was the silence that followed, the grace, the humility. Manny's bow and soft-spoken "respect, sir," became the moment replayed over and over again, stitched into reaction videos and motivational edits across every platform. Within hours, millions had seen it. Some laughed, others applauded, but most were inspired. In a quiet corner of his gym, Steven Seagal sat alone, watching the clip on a laptop. The room around him was empty except for the faint echo of a punching bag swinging slowly in the background. At first, his expression was unreadable. He replayed the moment in slow motion, the slip, the palm, the stumble, the bow. Then he sighed deeply, leaning back in his chair. For years, he'd been called a master, an icon, an unstoppable force. But that 3-second clip showed him something he hadn't felt in a long time: humility. He picked up his phone and scrolled through the flood of messages. Some were mocking, some supportive, but one stood out. "True warriors teach through grace, not pride." "You met one yesterday." "Our fellow martial artist." Seagal smiled faintly. It stung, but it was true. He opened Instagram, stared at the blank new post screen for a few seconds, then began typing slowly. "Yesterday, I had the honor of sharing the mat with one of the greatest fighters alive, Manny Pacquiao. What you saw online was not humiliation, it was a lesson. I was reminded that humility and control define a real champion. Thank you, Manny, for the reminder. Respect." He added a photo of them bowing at the end of the session, Manny smiling, Seagal with a hand over his chest. Within minutes, the post exploded. Thousands of comments poured in. Respect to both legends. Real men admit and grow. This is how martial arts is supposed to be, about honor, not ego. The narrative had shifted. What could have been a moment of ridicule became a story of redemption. Later that afternoon, Manny was at a youth training center in Los Angeles, teaching a group of kids basic footwork and respect drills. When one of his assistants whispered that Seagal had posted publicly, he simply smiled. He looked at the kids in front of him, barefoot, sweating, smiling, eyes wide with admiration, and said, "Remember this, being strong is good, but being kind is better. The world needs both." One of the boys raised his hand. "Sir Manny, did you really knock Steven Seagal down?" The gym went quiet, waiting for his answer. Manny laughed softly. "No, son. I didn't knock him down. He lost balance. And I learned something too. That respect is heavier than pride." The children nodded, some not fully understanding, but feeling the truth of it anyway. That evening, an unexpected call came in. Manny glanced at his phone. "Steven Seagal," he answered, calm as always. "Hello, sir." Seagal's voice on the other end was low but sincere. "Champ, I wanted to say thank you. You could have made me look foolish out there, but you didn't. You showed restraint and I won't forget that." Manny smiled. "No need to thank me, sir. You gave me respect first by letting me train with you. That's what matters," Seagal chuckled. "Well, next time maybe you can show me how to move that fast." "Next time," Manny said warmly, "we'll just share coffee instead of competition." The two men laughed, the kind of laugh that only comes after pride has dissolved and truth has settled in. 2 days later, they were seen together at a charity self-defense seminar in Los Angeles. Cameras flashed as the two walked side by side onto the mat. Seagal for once didn't play the dominant role. He gestured toward Manny, saying into the mic, "Ladies and gentlemen, this is what a real fighter looks like. Strong, calm, and humble. I'm proud to call him my friend." The crowd erupted in applause. Manny, modest as ever, simply bowed and replied, "We all fall sometimes. What matters is how we rise and who helps us up." The message hit home. Even Seagal nodded deeply, visibly moved. After the seminar, reporters crowded around. One asked Seagal, "Do you regret challenging Manny that day?" He smiled, not for a second. "That moment reminded me why I started training, to learn, not to win." Another asked Manny what lesson he hoped people took from it. He said softly, "That respect is the highest form of strength. Always." The quote would later be printed across magazines, meme pages, and sports blogs worldwide. As night fell, both men went their separate ways. Seagal back to his quiet home in Arizona, Manny to a flight headed for Manila. Somewhere above the clouds, Manny looked out the airplane window, the city lights below fading into darkness. He thought about how small the world becomes when pride fades and respect takes its place. He whispered a short prayer. "Lord, thank you for lessons that humble us. May we use them to lift others." In another part of the world, Seagal sat on his porch, phone in hand, replaying Manny's final words from that day in the dojo. "Strength without respect is just noise," he smiled to himself. "You're right, champ," he murmured. "You're absolutely right." By sunrise the next morning, the story wasn't just a video anymore. It had become a movement. Headlines all around the world carried some version of the same idea. Pacquiao teaches the world that respect is the strongest move. Steven Seagal's humility wins the internet. When ego fell and respect rose, the moment that united millions. Clips of their handshake, slow-motion breakdowns of Manny's calm, and Seagal's redemption post spread across every platform, from TikTok to news talk shows. The hashtag #RespectOverEgo trended in more than 20 countries. A Japanese martial arts master reposted the clip with the caption, "Technique fades, spirit remains." Pacquiao reminded us why we bow. An MMA champion from Brazil tweeted, "That's not a knockdown, that's enlightenment in motion." And from every corner of the internet came comments, reactions, and tears. In Los Angeles, Manny sat quietly at a small cafe, reading the messages on his phone. Some from fans, some from fighters, some from ordinary people saying things like, "I showed this to my son to teach him humility. I was about to quit martial arts until I saw this. You didn't just win a fight, Manny, and you won hearts," he smiled gently, sipping his coffee. He wasn't used to seeing himself as a symbol. To him, it had just been a moment, a test of patience, nothing more. But that's the thing about real strength. It doesn't need to announce itself. It simply shows up, and the world notices. Across the ocean in Japan, a documentary team reached out to both Seagal and Manny. They wanted to create a short film titled, "The Bow When Strength Meets Humility." Both men agreed. Weeks later, they reunited in Tokyo for filming. The dojo was different this time. Brighter, quieter, filled not with tension but with reverence. Cameras rolled as they stood side by side in front of an audience of students and masters from different martial arts backgrounds. Seagal took the microphone first. "That day in Los Angeles," he said, "I thought I was teaching a lesson, but I was the one being taught." The crowd listened intently. He continued, "It's easy to let fame make you forget where you started. I did, but Manny reminded me. Mastery means staying humble enough to keep learning." The room filled with applause. Then Manny stepped forward, bowing to both Seagal and the crowd. "What happened that day wasn't a fight," he said softly. "It was a conversation between pride and peace." He paused, looking at the rows of young martial artists watching him. We live in a world that celebrates loud victories, but sometimes the quietest moment, a bow, a smile, restraint, is the true win. The audience erupted in respectful applause again. Many bowed, deeply moved. That documentary would later become one of the most viewed motivational videos of the year, screened in dojos and classrooms worldwide. Meanwhile, back in the Philippines, Manny's hometown of General Santos City painted a mural in his honor. Not of his boxing gloves, not of his championships, but of that moment in the dojo. Manny bowing as Seagal stood, one hand over his chest. Beneath it, in bold letters, were his words, "Respect is stronger than any punch." Tourists came just to see it. Students took photos in front of it, mimicking the bow. The image became a symbol of discipline, humility, and courage. Months later, Seagal and Manny appeared together again, this time on a talk show. The host, smiling, asked playfully, "So, Steven, are you still a little sore about that 3-second moment?" The audience laughed. Seagal grinned. "Only my ego was sore." Manny fixed that. Laughter and applause filled the room. The host turned to Manny. "You've been called the peaceful fighter after that video. What does that mean to you?" Manny's smile faded into something sincere. "It means I've done my job. Fighting isn't about hurting someone, it's about revealing what's inside you. If peace comes out, then I'm proud." The crowd cheered wildly. Cameras flashed. It wasn't a performance, and it was truth, plain and simple. That night, Manny returned to his hotel room tired but peaceful. He scrolled through the endless flood of messages. Soldiers, athletes, teachers, parents, all saying the same thing in different words. "Thank you." He set his phone down, knelt beside his bed, and whispered a quiet prayer of gratitude. Outside, the Tokyo skyline glittered like a sea of stars. Somewhere out there, Steven Seagal watched the same skyline from his own balcony. He smiled, remembering Manny's bow, and whispered the word that had come to define their unlikely friendship. Respect. Weeks later, the International Martial Arts Federation announced a new annual award, the Pacquiao-Seagal Spirit of Respect Honor, given to athletes who demonstrate humility in moments of triumph. The announcement read, "A champion is not the one who stands tallest, but the one who bows lowest in gratitude." The first recipients were 2 teenage girls from South Korea who stopped mid-competition to help their injured opponent. Manny personally congratulated them through a video call, saying, "You are the proof that real champions care more about hearts than trophies." And as the credits of the viral story rolled across time, one truth remained unshaken. In a world that celebrates strength, Manny Pacquiao reminded everyone that the truest power lies in grace. If you believe that respect is greater than pride, type respect in the comments and share this story with someone who needs to remember what real strength looks like.